Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cam, and this is First and 10. So this is my first video, and I just wanted to say thank you if you are actually checking this out. I have been scouting on my own for a few years now, and just wanted to give a shot at making some YouTube videos, see what happened right in the thick of draft season, so I figured it'd be as good a time as ever. And with the Combine coming up starting Thursday here, I thought it'd be a good idea to get a final pre-Combine board put together. I've got 152 players ranked on my board overall right now, but all of those guys down there, it's going to change so much. So I just wanted to get a look at probably the top 50 guys here, at least look at my top 50 board at the moment. And starting off at number one here, we've got Travis Hunter, of course, probably the most electrifying player in college football over the last 20 years, at least from a draft perspective. I mean, just the amount of hype this guy's been getting for what feels like the longest time is crazy, but it's well-deserved. I mean, we have never seen a two-way player like this. We've never seen one that's such a difference maker on both sides of the ball. I mean, as a DB specifically, I would probably have him 8 or 9 on my board there right next to Will Johnson. And as a wide receiver, he's probably sitting there right behind Tet McMillan and just above Luther Burden. So, I mean, when you've got a guy who's probably the 8th or 9th best player in the class at a single position, but he plays two positions, that's the number one player in the draft, in my opinion. Abdul Carter here at number 2, 6'3", 259 pounds is, I believe, what he's weighed in at right now or what he was listed at in college. Carter is the definition of a prototypical number one draft pick edge rusher. He plays the game at warp speed. He's able to read plays really quickly and close on ball carriers before they even have a chance to react. He's got a real knowledge for the game and has a lot of similarities to Micah Parsons, even if they aren't quite the same player. Just the way he approaches the game reminds me of Parsons. His first step, explosion, is elite. He's able to beat tackles to their spot and gets the quarterbacks kind of off platform. He freaks them out in the pocket, frankly. And I mean, he's just a natural athlete too. He's got violence in his tackling. He hits hard. Everything you look for in a number one edge rusher. Coming in at number 3, we've got Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. I think he's the clear-cut number 3 player in this draft, and I know he's been falling in mock drafts recently, but it was kind of the same case with Bijan Robinson a couple years back. I know around the Combine time, he was falling. He was in the low 20s, late teens in mock drafts, despite having that top 5, top 10 hype during the season. And then, of course, it kind of reverted back to the top 10, and then, of course, going number 8 overall. I think that's a similar case with Jeanty. I still think his floor is the Cowboys at 12. But with the nature of how running backs get drafted, you just never know. This is just a top 50 board on who are the best players in the draft. No mock influence, no who's going to go where. This is just who are the dogs. But let's move on here. And coming in at number 4 here, though, we've got Mason Graham, the D-tackle from Michigan. Number 5, Tet McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona, 6'5", 210 pounds. I like him a lot. Will Campbell from LSU here, I have him listed as a tackle. It's similar to the Peter Skoronski thing. I think he'd be a great guard, but I want to try him, and I want to see him fail at tackle first before we move him into guard. And I still think he's an elite player in this draft. Not a blue chip player here. I think your blue chip guys are your top 4 players, but I'd feel really comfortable taking him at 4, frankly, if I was New England, I want to say. Number 7, though, we've got Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Just all around solid player. At number 8, though, we've got Will Johnson, my number 1 cornerback on the board, or at least beer corner, I guess, with Travis Hunter sitting there. But Will Johnson's interesting because I know he's been a top 5 player for most people throughout the entire draft process up until maybe the last month or two. Questions about his long speed have come up. I mean, he didn't look as fast or explosive throughout the season, but that's going to be where the Combine. I don't know if he's running or not. I would love to see it. But you never know. You just got to see how he looks at the Combine as long as he's going to be out there for everything. So that's an interesting one. Malachi Starks here. I think I do have him a little bit higher than most people, but he's at number 9 here for me. He's got elite speed. I believe he was clocked at a 4.35 in college. his track speed, and it combines with a violent physicality. He's a really good tackler. He's explosive. It's textbook form, just what you would expect from a Kirby Smart coached player. He's really instinctive and is able to feel routes develop behind him while also keeping his eyes in the backfield, just to keep an eye on the quarterback. He makes plays. And while I don't think he plays like Kyle Hamilton, I think I kind of view him as a very similar type player within the draft. Just the way that the draft is shaping up this year. I know it's a little bit weaker in the first round, but picks 20 through 60 are just all crazy and jumbled up. I think a guy who you feel is going to be a multi-time Pro Bowler, 80 to 90%, you take that guy in the top 10, top 15, and don't even second guess yourself. But closing it out here, to round out the top 10, we've got Luther Burden. Down year, but Missouri's quarterbacks were absolutely horrible. I'm an OU fan, and watching that OU-Missouri game was some of the worst football I've ever seen in my life. They had a backup quarterback in, Missouri did, and it was not Luther Burden's fault. Let's just put it that way. But I've had enough of thinking about Missouri's backup quarterbacks here. So let's move on to 11 through 20. So at number 11 here, I've got Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. He's a little bit undersized, but really explosive. I think in a 3-4 system, he would be a perfect edge rusher. Like Brian Flores, a scheme I know he won't last till Minnesota at 24. There's some Von Miller-esque similarities between Green and Miller. They don't necessarily play the same, but really, really good, and I think he's worthy of going in the top 15. Number 12, I've got Emeka Egbuka. Similar situation, I think, as Malachi Starks. A little bit higher than consensus, but I just think he's solid. He's just a solid player. Brian Hartline's receivers at Ohio State, they just work out. I would take him in the top 15, no questions about it. Number 13, Walter Nolan here, the D-tackle from Ole Miss. Number 14 and 15, I've got two more tackles here. Kelvin Banks from Texas and Armand Membu from Missouri. Offensive tackles, excuse me. I think Membu is also a candidate to play on the inside because he's only 6'3", but I, again, leave him at tackle first, see how it goes. Now, here's where probably the first surprise comes in with Cam Ward at 16. Also, I believe a little bit lower than most people have him consensus. Cam Ward is a fun player, and I would probably view him similarly to how I viewed Justin Fields coming out a few years ago. I think he's worth a top 10 pick, or a top 8 pick even. And in this case, you kind of have to take him at number 1 or number 2 if you're whoever needs a quarterback. I still don't think it's out of the question that Tennessee trades. But Cam Ward is really fun to watch. I mean, he's just a natural playmaker. The off-platform stuff, he throws the ball from different arm angles. He's fun to watch. The pocket mobility is, for the most part, good. And I'm not talking about the fact that he just stands there, but the way he is able to maneuver and keep a clean pocket for so long is credit to him as well as the offensive line. But, of course, he holds the ball for way too long. There's unnecessary sacks and turnovers that he takes. I think he plays similarly to how Sam Darnold played for the Vikings this season. And I think that's a good quarterback. You know, you can win. I think some years that's a top 12 quarterback. Some years that's maybe the 16th or 17th quarterback. And I think you can win. He's good. He's really good. I just don't see him as highly as I think others do. His arm talent's not elite. It's good. I think it'd be a top 10 to 12 arm in the NFL, but there's just a lot of guys with some rockets out there. It's just good. He's a good quarterback. At number 17 here, we've got Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan, 340-pound behemoth here. He's a fun player to watch. I wish he was a little more consistent, but he's a stud. At number 18, got James Pierce Jr. So I actually have him in my top 10 as a talent in this draft. However, there have been some recent murmurings about character concerns, and I'm not sure what that means. I have no NFL context, but I'm lowering him until I get a little more clarity on that. Maybe something comes out in the combine interviews. I don't know. It's one of those things you don't know about if you're not in NFL circles. But he's got an elite first step. He's got a really good rip move. The only real problem with him is he needs to work on his angle to the quarterback. He's a good speed rusher, but that bend is sometimes he goes too far back into the pocket and allows the quarterback to move up. But he's great, and if everything is clear with him, I'd take him in the top 10. Now, at number 19, Jahdae Barron, the Texas corner. He's really fun. He's really talented, 5'11", I believe 200 pounds, so he's got a thick build to him, and I think he's just a playmaker. And then finally here to close out the top 20, we've got Amarian Hampton, my second running back out of North Carolina. Same deal with Hampton as a lot of these guys, is he is just solid. He's going to hit a lot of singles and doubles, but he is a threat in the receiving game. He is well-rounded in pass protection for the most part. Good ball security, no real problems. And I mean, man, he's just going to get you a lot of 7 to 10 and 10 to 15 yard runs, just fighting physical. He's more elusive than you would think for his size. He's listed at 6'1", 220, I believe. But he's just got a good way of maneuvering through the holes, because North Carolina did not have a good offensive line last year. And he kind of reminds me of Joe Mixon in some ways, or Edgar and James, actually. Some of you guys remember Edgar and James from the Colts days. Really fun player, and I think he could be a 1,200-yard rusher as a rookie. But let's go ahead and move on here to 21 through 30. This is where there starts to be a lot more parity. On any given day, given my mood, I could have Shamar Stewart at number 21 or Tyler Booker at number 22 and vice versa. This is something that's going to be heavily combine dependent as well once we start to get some more stuff out about athletic testing. But at number 21, I've got Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. Again, Simmons could be a lot higher on this list. He could be right next to Mimbu and Banks, but unfortunately he had a knee injury back in October that took him out for the rest of the season. That plays into why he's sitting here at 21, but any given day, if the medicals check out at the combine, he could be a lot higher. At 22, got Mykel Williams, the edge from Georgia. I know that a lot of people have him higher on their list, but he's really raw. He kind of reminds me of Trayvon Walker from a few years ago. We'll see kind of where he goes, but I know he's rising. He's been rising over the last month of draft boards, so he could go higher. At 23, Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Bama, just a throwback linebacker. He's a fun player. 24, Gray Zabel. He plays tackle for North Dakota State, but he's got 32-inch arms. I think he's going to move inside to center or guard. He is one of the examples where I would not like to try him at tackle first. I think he's an inside player, but you never know. At 25, Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. 26, Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. 27, Caleb Johnson, third running back on my board from Iowa. At number 28, we've got Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. He's a good run-stuffing defensive tackle. I think he's got a safe floor. I could see him going back into the first round easy. At number 29, we've got Tyler Booker, and rounding out the top 30, Shamar Stewart, the freak athlete, kind of edge tackle hybrid from Texas A&M. Moving on, though, we've got at number 31, I want to say it is Siobhan Revell. I swear I've heard people pronounce that name 8 different ways, and I think I heard Siobhan Revell was the correct pronunciation, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is another player who could be a lot higher, but injuries. Tore his ACL towards the beginning of the season. Freak athlete, though. He's, I believe, 6'2", 6'3". He is everything you would want in a prototypical corner from a looks perspective. So it'll be interesting to see what the medical news on him is. 32, Nick Scorton, edge from Texas A&M. 33, Azariah Thomas, corner from Florida State. Great man coverage corner. He's fun. Number 34, Jalen Walker, the edge linebacker hybrid from Georgia. A lot lower than most people have. I've seen mocks with him at 8. but he's just raw, in my opinion. He's really raw, and it's all development from there. It'll be interesting to see who takes him. 35, Nick Emmanwori, safety from South Carolina. 36, Josh Connerly, the tackle from Oregon. I think he stays at tackle for the better part of his career. He's a fun player. Number 37, TJ Sanders, interior defensive lineman. I think he's more of a three-tech. He's about 280 pounds, 6'3", 284, I believe he's what he measured in at. So it could depend on the scheme, but interior line for sure. 38, Trevion Henderson, running back from Ohio State. Man, he just reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's like 95% of Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion. And that's worthy of being beginning of the second round, in my opinion. At 39, we've got Donovan Ezerakwu, the edge from Boston College. And rounding out the top 40, Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. And just a quick note on Derek Harmon, because I know he is another player who is getting a lot of first-round buzz. I like him. I just see some inconsistencies. And he is a taller defensive tackle. I believe he's 6'5", 6'6". I like my defensive tackles short. I like leverage. I like the guys that are 6'3" and under that can really get up there and push guys. That's Deion Walker from Kentucky is a guy I've got way lower on my board than most people for the reason of him being 6'7", 6'8". I like Derek Harmon, but I just have him a little bit lower. As we wrap up the top 50, though, getting 41 through 50 in, at number 41, we've got Eric Iomaner, the wide receiver from Stanford. He's really consistent, really good possession catch receiver, good contested catch ability. He reminds me a lot of Michael Crabtree during those later Raiders years. I just think that he is going to be a solid number 2 receiver at the NFL level for the next 7-8 years. At number 42, we've got Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. Number 43, we've got Jack Sawyer, the edge from Ohio State. At number 44, Jack Besh, wide receiver from TCU. I don't know if it's the fellow white guy thing. I know that comp gets overused, but he reminds me of Adam Thielen. A little slower, but I don't know. I just see some Adam Thielen in him. At number 45, a guy who would probably be a lot higher on my board if he hadn't had the hip injury, it is Benjamin Morrison, the corner from Notre Dame. At number 46, Darian Porter, the corner from Iowa State. I think if he can get into the right cover 3 style system, he could be really good. He needs to get in the right system. He's got great ball skills, great instincts in zone coverage. At number 47 and 48, we've got Landon Jackson and JT Tuimoloau, the two edges, respectively, out of Arkansas and Ohio State. They are both guys who I think are going to be high-floor players at the NFL level. I like how Landon Jackson plays the run. That's how I've got him one spot ahead. Finally, here's the big one. I think a lot of you guys were wondering where he was, but Shedeur Sanders at 49. So reason I have Shedeur this low is I have real concerns about his arm talent. I'm sure we've got some Madden fans out there. If I were to be creating him in Madden, he might have 85, 86 throw power, in my opinion. It's not there. I worry if he's going to be able to fit that ball into the tight windows at the NFL level because I don't think his processing is as sharp as people say. I think that he does tend to he needs to see receivers get open a little bit more often than kind of the consensus would say on that. And then just the pocket movement, it worries me. I don't know. He's a day 2 quarterback, in my opinion. I understand, given the situation, why he's going to go where he will, but he's just not worthy of a first-round pick, in my opinion. But rounding out the top 50, Donovan Jackson, great interior O-lineman from Ohio State. That does round out my top 50. If there is anyone that is actually watching this right now, thank you very much. You are much appreciated. Depending on how this video does, I would really like to get some positional rankings put out post-combine, so we will see. I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.